When I first trained in Tantra 15 years ago, there was no mention of trauma. There were so many things covered. We definitely went through many different methods. We went through philosophy, anatomy, physiology, so many topics, but not this one topic of trauma. It was only when I started to teach that I began to realize I didn't feel fully equipped and empowered to deal with everything I was going to face along the way. There were so many different ways in which I needed more support as a teacher, and that included students showing up to classes who had sexual trauma or other kinds of trauma in their history, and I simply didn't even know how that impacted their nervous system and how I might need to moderate practices in order to work with them. On top of that, I was discovering that emotional release work or energy moving could have very strong effects on certain people, and I didn't really know how best to support them. I had been taught how to activate the energy, but I had not been taught how to regulate the energy and how to support people. And I wasn't taught either how you need to work out when somebody needs more stimulation and when it's time to pause and resource and take a breath. So there were so many things. And I mean, also other little nuances and details, like being able to spot more quiet forms of trauma. I mean, it's easy to spot when someone's having a big emotional release, but what about the people who are freezing up, who are going silent, who are withdrawing, or even being a pleaser as a trauma response? If you are not trained in understanding this, then you simply cannot see your participants fully and understand how to work with each individual case. And not knowing leads to various difficulties, accidentally overwhelming people or having it not feel safe for certain students and not realizing that everybody's having a different experience in the room. So over the years, I began to realize what was missing and start seeking more and more of that. I have a background of psychology from Oxford, but when you train as a psychologist, mostly that's kind of sitting on two chairs in a room having a conversation. It is a long, long way away from a Tantra workshop, from working directly with subjects of sexuality and intimacy and, really diving in deep. Not to mention the fact that we're moving, dancing, expressing, maybe participants are touching each other, maybe they're even semi-naked. There are so many factors that make it very, very different from training as a normal kind of psychologist or psychotherapist. So I began to try and seek more empowerment to support myself so that I could support my students. And as I did that, I started to do trauma trainings and realized, this is really the missing piece. But even in those trauma trainings, most of them are aimed at psychotherapists or normal facilitators. However, I have definitely pieced together a much, much better toolkit than I started off with and learned a lot along the way. So this brought me to the idea of why don't we create a trauma-informed training that's specifically designed for Tantra professionals? And in doing that, bring together the best professionals in the field who are experienced in Tantra, working with sexuality, but also in trauma and psychotherapy. So I got together with my dear friend, Buster Radvik, who is himself both an intimacy coach and a trained psychotherapist, deeply trained in sensory motor psychotherapy, which is really working with trauma healing. I have seen him work many, many times. I've worked alongside him. I've received sessions from him as well, and really got to feel the power of his work. So I approached him and said, hey, why don't we make this training? It's so needed in the field. There are still so many Tantra teacher trainings and people leaping in to teach this work who've done apprenticeships, but there's still not a really one-stop place where they can go and get the trauma-informed training that they need. So we have been on a mission for the last few months, getting excited about this project and bringing in a whole bunch of experts who can approach different angles. We're looking at so many different aspects, such as knowing the basic theory and terminology so that you can understand the science of what's going on with trauma, but also the application of that. How do you actually work in real living events when somebody's getting triggered, when there's things moving in the field? How do you as a facilitator step in? How do you as a facilitator also learn to notice people who actually should not be doing this work with you, to understand it may not be suitable for everyone? How do you work to moderate your classes or your structures when you can feel who showed up in your room? So many topics for us to go into. And of course, not forgetting crisis management. What do we do when something really big is happening in the space? How do we move through that? So we have been on our big mission and continue to do so, to bring together some of the greatest experts in this field. And we've decided to create this program as a live 6-week program starting on February the 5th, 2023. We want to do this live because we feel that it's very important that we can really do practical classes where we're able to bring up topics and actually work with them then and there and bring in different ways of responding and supporting. So we are designing to have 3 live classes a week plus 2 bonus classes in which we bring in guest teacher Giten Tonkov. He is the designer of the BBTRS, the Biodynamic Breathwork Training, which is breathwork designed specifically for trauma release. I've also trained with him. I love his work, and he has so much to share about how to work with activating energy and also calming it back down and how to move between them. So he's going to be leading live classes with live demonstrations. There's also going to be a lot of integration with sharing circles so that you can harvest all the fruits of this work. And then on top of that, we have a whole series of interviews and specialists coming in and teaching their own classes on their specialist topic to do with trauma. Our intention is to try and bring everything possible together that you might need working in this field, whether you're a Tantra teacher or a body worker or working online. Can we try to bring all the support structures together for you? And of course, it's a very big task to set ourselves, and we're going to do our best with that. But that's what we really, really want to create. So if that calls you, if you're like, oh yes, this is the missing piece for me too, then please click on the link and check it out, or get in contact and find out more about this training. And I look forward to seeing you there.